I don't know. Again, we could be worse. Could be the Bengals. They're in a tough spot right now. I know there are some people who think that they're going to, if they lose this week, they're going to try and tank for Marvin Harrison, which would be a very interesting scenario because then they could potentially get rid of T. Higgins.
Speaking of tanking, there's a lot of talk about multiple teams in the NFL tanking if they lose this week, which is the first time I think we've ever kind of been in this scenario, right? Like going into the season, we know what teams aren't good, right? Or expect to know what teams aren't good. This is a team that I think a lot of people thought could win the Super Bowl, the Cincinnati Bengals, or get to the Super Bowl again.
They got to the AFC title game 2 years in a row.
And now it's, if they lose, they're probably going to tank. Yeah, if the Vikings lose, a lot of people were high on.
Because it's so hard to come back from 1-4, 1-5. Yeah.
With how many teams that we're talking about possibly tanking, are we going to eventually find ourselves in a spot almost like the NBA lottery?
Were they?
Are they going to? Because
they've talked about that.
I feel like this is just right. Cardinals suck. Bears suck. Panthers suck, but that's the Bears pick too.
Yes.
Right. Texans, people thought were going to suck. They've actually been probably one of the biggest surprises in the NFL. Patriots suck. Now the Bengals are over here. They're not playing well. I mean, you expected the Cardinals to be bad with no Kyler Murray. The Bears, I think, probably were the most overhyped team going into the season. I think it's safe to say they've looked
based on the first few weeks. Sure,
they've looked like the worst team. The Bengals, you expect. I mean, you pull up standings. It's the Jets. That's because of Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. I mentioned the Patriots sucking. You look at the AFC West. The Broncos suck. The Raiders suck. The Giants. That's another team people were high on, expecting to make the playoffs. They're 1-3. Bears 0-4. Vikings 1-3. There's a lot of teams out here right now.
It's very top heavy right now in the league.
Yeah,
because it's like Buffalo, Miami. Those are the two. Baltimore's up there. The South is kind of idle. The Chiefs are up there even after their week 1 start. Philly's up there. Detroit's up there. Tampa Bay's up there. We'll talk about Tampa Bay probably. San Francisco's up there. Seattle's up there. Yeah, it seems like all the good teams are great and all the bad teams are horrible.
Yeah, but then you have a couple teams in there that you expected to be great and they're bad. So,
no,
I mean, and to your point, if the Bengals lose this week, now, if they lose this week, I think they have no choice but to tank because they play the Cardinals.
Okay, yeah.
If the Bengals lose this week, I don't think they have a choice. They're going to have to bench Burrow, let his calf get healthy. They're going to have to try to tank without coming out and saying it, even though it seems like people are saying it everywhere.
Then does that cause issue? I mean, obviously it's going to cause, if he understands, that's one thing. But if Burrow's still like, no, I want to keep going. I want to try and get this team back on track. Does that cause a friction with him and the team? Because that could obviously cause issues with him and the head coach. If the head coach is not on board, I mean, Zach Taylor's in a tough spot right now because even though this guy made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, no one has ever given Zach Taylor as the reason that they made that Super Bowl. It was because of the players.
Right.
So I think Zach Taylor's in such a tough spot right now, and it's probably, if it keeps going like this, he's not going to have a job by the end of the year. I don't know. We talked about the Jets. I still think they should trade for Kirk Cousins because, you mentioned the 1 year left on his contract that can kind of suffice for when Aaron Rodgers gets back, which apparently he's trying to get back during this season now. He said
that's
on
very interesting.
Pat McAfee, which is it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. We talked about Justin Fields. If the Bears, I had heard, I don't think this is know if this is true, but I had heard a rumor that if the Bears lose specifically this week and drop to 0-5, they're going to fire Eberflus. They're going to bench Fields and try to trade him. To me, I think the Atlanta Falcons would probably be the best move because obviously not only would it be a reunion, but it would be a better system fit, I think, for him, a fresh start.
And he'd be home. Keep in mind, he's from the Georgia area.
Home, but we also mentioned with New York, it's like him and Garrett Wilson getting back together. But I don't think the Jets would be as good a fit for him.
I don't think they could take the. I mean, he's a first round pick too.
No.
Let's keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers' money is guaranteed.
Well, how many years does he have on his deal left? One after this year.
So he was drafted in
2021, right?
2020 was his last year, so he would have been drafted in
2021.
Well, no, the bowl game would have been 2020 technically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but but it was the spring of 2021.
Yeah, okay, no, you're right. Yep.
So this is his third year in the league.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he would have fourth year and then the fifth year option, which honestly probably every team would pick up except for the Chicago Bears.
Sure,
that's the Chicago Bears we're talking about. So I think a lot of teams would take a flyer on Justin Fields because he's shown flashes, right? He's shown flashes,
and he's shown flashes here, but he has shown like a lot of bad tendencies this year. Obviously, the holding onto the ball too long, not being as much of a playmaker as he was at Ohio State and early on in his career. if he can get some of that confidence back and have some time to be able to develop, I think he can be okay. I actually think the same thing as Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, if he just gets some time to have a better stance around him, can do something. And I understand that people being like, yeah, well, his year at BYU during the pandemic season beat up his numbers, and that's why he was taking fair. But this is a guy that actually outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Sunday night game.
Yeah.
Got called trash for Rodney Harrison. He apologized for it. We don't have to go there. But, yeah, again, this is a guy that should not have been starting this year.
Right.
And it was such a tough scenario for them to be put in. I think the Jets are going to realize now that if they want to salvage their season, they got to go after somebody else. Probably Cousins, because the Vikings I don't think are going to be much of a runner either, especially with Detroit. And maybe Green Bay is still in the division, but it's probably going to be Detroit if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the kind of the touch points we were talking about in the NFL. I got so frustrated with Washington this week not beating Philly, especially with that replay in the end in overtime. He stepped on the guy's wrist. It would have been a completed pass if he didn't step on the guy's wrist, and then it was close enough. But either way, there was that. And then the South is very interesting right now because they're all 2-2 right now. Every team in the South is 2-2. I'm surprised to say that Houston might be a team that could break away if they get a couple of games here. And it's not just because CJ Stroud has been putting up video game like numbers. I think this is a better team than last year at the start. I think this is a tougher team. I think teams are going to, especially after the Steelers game, which granted, the Steelers are not great to begin with, and Pickett will be out for a few weeks, which will be nightmarish for them. It's seemingly, I don't know. He said that he might return this week. Did they say? I don't know if that's.
We'll have to wait and see. I think.
I don't know about that, but Houston's an interesting case where if Indianapolis doesn't get it together, that could be the leader in the AFC South.
And let's look. Texans play the Falcons this week. They could win that game. They play the Saints at home. It's a winnable game. They play the Panthers. Winnable game. You're talking about the Texans. Now it's the NFL. We saw last week a lot of weird things happen. They could be 5-2. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibilities here. They have a bye after the Texans game before they would play the Panthers. Then they would play Tampa Bay. Then they play the Bengals. Then they play the Cardinals. I mean, Mitch, if the Bengals lose and they tank, you're talking about their toughest game in that stretch is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if we're being honest. I mean, the Texans, and this is the luxury of being a bad team the year before when the schedule comes out, right? But the Texans, if they continue this, and CJ Stroud, who is right now on pace for, or currently is one of the top 3 rookie performances thus far through 4 weeks in NFL history as a quarterback, this is a sneaky team that could end up being in the playoffs. And then they play the Jags, which that's a big one. They already beat them. Then the Broncos, they have the Jets on there, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. I mean, this is an easy schedule if they keep playing like they have been.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes. Real quick, you take stock in one AFC team right now, Chiefs or Bills. Who do you take? Because I have my answer.
It's the Chiefs.
Bill? No.
It's always the Chiefs.
Look.
Until the Buffalo Bills can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Okay.
I have to ride with the Chiefs.
They just beat Miami like 48-20, dude. Like that offense.
I know they look great.
That offense is solid.
I'm not saying the Buffalo Bills aren't good.
I don't think this is as good a Chiefs team. It's still a very good Chiefs team, but not as good a Chiefs team.
It's like they almost have too many distractions. It's like there's a certain celebrity that's just distracting everybody right now that shows up to their games.
Apparently, I don't know much about that.
About that.
Not really. I didn't see a flashing to them after an Isaiah Pacheco 64-yard touchdown to lead off the game. I didn't see that at all.
I heard there was a celebrity there, wasn't it?
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
Yeah,
and Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's probably what it was. Donna Kelsey.
What about the blonde one though? Blake Lively. Yes, that's who it was. Yeah. Of course.
Her Ryan Reynolds power couple.
For sure.